All right, good evening, everyone. This is meeting number 2 for the comprehensive plan. My name is Don Vitello, town council member from Ward 2. Thank you all for coming. And I hope that the information you share this evening and that you get from the town, you take back to your individual neighborhoods and share with them, you know, what the possible plan is for the coming 10 years. Comprehensive plan is an opportunity for the residents of Easton to have input in what they want to see in the coming future. So I'm not going to talk for too long because there's a lot of things to get through. But if you have any questions for me, I will be here through the whole meeting, and I'll probably be in the back at the end. So feel free to talk to me again and ask away. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming today. I'm going to do it without a microphone, if that's okay. How many of you that came here tonight have been involved with long-range planning, either with your place of work, perhaps a community organization, a church, or something? So you've all seen a long-range plan, business system plan, strategic plan, or at least you can have clearly writing the goal, objective, action plan, or very least, probably seen. So, in a simple respect, the long-range comprehensive plan is our long-range plan. What it does is it guides the growth and development. So it's organized. And the one thing it does do, not only does it provide a visionary statement for the next 10 years, but it also talks about the kinds of development projects we'd like to see in this town over the 10-year period. So how many residential, how many commercial, how many industrial, how many retail? Not only how many, but where should we locate them within the town? What should they look at? What are the architectural statements? And what are the other attendant support services that we need? The roads, the schools, the parks, sewage, water, home build, all the things that we have. So the comprehensive plan is revised once in 10 years. And it's done coincidentally with the release of the census data. So the census data that just came out in the 2020 census shows that the population now is now 17,101 residents. That represents 0.7% growth in these 10 years. So we have the ability of hindsight. We can look back at that growth and place it up. We can now make a determination. Is that growth? Was it too much, or was it just right? So we have the ability now, based upon some of that historical information and how we feel about how our community evolved, what we want to see happen in our town. So people always ask the question, well, why is a comprehensive plan so important? I'm going to give you 2 reasons why it's a critically important document. The first is that it serves as a control document when new projects, new development projects come to town. So anytime the planning commission or the fact that town council gets a project, the first thing that they do is look to make certain that it's consistent with the contract. If it is, it stands a chance of being approved. And if it's not, it doesn't. So it's critical that it's got to be consistent. The second thing is it serves as our Bible, if you will. So whenever we're revising or reviewing any other planning tools, like recently revised zoning codes, and we're now working on the subdivision regulations, we look to that document to make sure that what we're doing with these application tools is consistent. And I'll give you an example. The recently revised zoning code. One of the things that the comprehensive plan is that we're concerned about affordable workforce housing. So when we revised the zoning code, made sure that allowed for not only denser housing, but also a variety of new forms of multi-family housing. And having those located in sections of town where the hero around. So we make certain that all the tools that we have at our disposal will bring that document. So there's one thing that makes the comp plan a little bit different than some of the other planning tools we have. I'll use the zoning codes as an example. We recently revised those, and that's a document that the planning commission revises in concert with the staff. And when it's all done, it's when the public sees it at a public hearing. Well, the comp plan is prepared in a very different format, almost 100 degrees opposite. So there is no new revised comp plan yet, because our approach is well and seek input from the community. So the items that are in the plan, the vision that's in the plan, needs to represent the community vision for the future. That's why it's not written out yet, because we're trying to get a sense, put our finger on the pulse of the community, and decide what it is you all think about growth and development, and which you declare the growth or visit. So we've done that a couple of different ways. One, we've already had a meeting with all the community groups. We've met with members of the business community, those people that are involved in development projects on a routine basis. We're now conducting meetings with community members in each of the 4 election boards. We're soon going to have a uniform town hall meeting with everybody in the community. We have 2 surveys that are online. I would offer them that if you haven't taken those surveys yet, go to that website. Please, we'd like to have your input surveys, and we'll probably have at least 2 more. And then obviously, at the end of the process, when the draft is developed, there'll be the obligatory public hearing, so you all can take a look. So it is a critical document. So what we're going to do tonight is Lynn is going to go through the results of personal surveys. I think we had 500 reviews.
So we have 2 surveys combined. There's over 600. The majority of them are from the first survey. That's, I think, 535 to 540-ish, and the other is just under 100.
So is that a good turnout? Yes. But you know what? Got 17,000 people. Wouldn't it be nice to have 7,000 surveys? 10,000 surveys? So we would like to get many more than the 500 or 600 that we have now. So please take the survey and encourage your friends and neighbors to do so. So tonight, into the surveys, we're going to tell you or show you what people are saying about their ideas for future growth and development. We want to ask you, do you agree with what people are saying? Or do you think there's another approach that you should consider? And then we're also going to ask you a couple of thought-provoking questions to kind of get you creative juices going to see what some of your ideas are. So that's our program. We'll try to keep it formal and also as good as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. So good evening, folks. My name's Lynn Thomas. I am the town planner. You'll forgive me if I'm not my usual dynamic self, because I spent 4 hours this afternoon with these folks, and it just wears you out a bit. But this is an important meeting. I think we appreciate you coming out. And though you may be few in number, your voice still counts. And I will say, give yourself a pat on the back, because you have already contributed with the little exercises that we've done to a greater extent than in some of the previous meetings. So well done. We hope to carry that forward to the remaining community meetings, and maybe this or something like it at the town hall meeting. I would certainly echo what Mr. Weber said about the surveys, if you haven't taken them. And both of them, they are unique surveys, 2 different surveys. So you're welcome to take both of them. And we'd encourage you to do so, and certainly let your friends and neighbors know about them, and direct them to our website to take them as well. And be on the lookout for more. I think we will likely have one that focuses on housing issues and one on traffic issues, because already those have been identified as very important issues in the eyes of the community. So we want to drill a little deeper on those particular issues, and then there, depending on what else we hear, there may be one or two other specific topic-related issue surveys. So just in case you're not familiar with this, this is essentially the meeting for the residents of Ward 2. Not that we're checking IDs at the door or anything. Anybody's welcome in the meeting. But the shaded area in green is the current boundaries of Ward 2. And in case you're not familiar with what a comprehensive plan is, I won't go through all the details. I had that, you can see originally I had spelled out a number of bullet points, but I just went through and highlighted some of the main features in each of those. So it's long range. That's probably the first point to make. It really looks ahead 20, 30, even more years. In some communities, they're comfortable projecting out 50 years or more in their growth. And a couple of aspects of our plan will touch on that. So that's the overall time frame with an emphasis on the next 10 years, because as Mr. Weber said, we update it every 10 years. So long range, future oriented, it's the official statement of goals, objectives, and policies on a number of growth related topics. It contains a vision of what we anticipate our community to be like. And its primary focus is on land use, although certainly land use is influenced by a number of things. So it also includes a lot of other subject areas like transportation, parks and recreation, environmental areas, etc. But at its heart, it's a land use document. It's probably important to say a few words about what a comprehensive plan is not. It is not law. So we can't enforce the provisions of the comprehensive plan, other than to the extent, as Mr. Weber alluded to, a number of our review processes require us to make findings relative to consistency with the comprehensive plan. But the plan itself is a guide, a guiding document, more of a blueprint. It's not law. That comes in the form of the zoning code, subdivision regulations, and other various town codes and regulations. It's not completely inflexible. It is possible, although we update it every 10 years, it's possible to amend it in between those updates. It's a rigorous process to do that. It's a lengthy process. I think that was intentional on the part of state lawmakers when they prescribed that process, so that you don't do it lightly or unadvisedly. But it is possible, and we have on a couple of occasions processed amendments to the comprehensive plan. It's not all-knowing, so try as we might, something will, capital letters, because I can guarantee it, something will come up that the plan does not anticipate. And depending on how serious that issue is, we may stop and process one of those amendments, or we might just, put it, file it away to remember to address with the next comprehensive plan. And it's not a master development plan in the sense of you can't look at the comprehensive plan and expect to know exactly what's going to happen on every parcel of town. It's more general than that. I know other professions might think of a comprehensive plan. Sometimes you hear it referred to as a master plan, and they envision something like that, but that's not what a community's comprehensive plan is. Just real quick, the plan that we are in the process of updating is over 300 pages in length, or actually it's exactly 300 pages in length. It contains 15 chapters plus a foreword, 2 appendices, and 10 maps, and an explicit statement of 46 goals and 185 objectives. So there's a lot in it. But if you want to boil it down, here's the Cliff Notes version. This really summarizes a lot of the spirit of the current comprehensive plan. at least with regards to its policy on growth. It calls for us to contain sprawl, or the outward geographic extent of the town in the future town, with an urban growth boundary. So I sometimes refer to it as a line in the sand. This is as far as we ever envisioned Easton growing. Again, of course, that can be adjusted, but that represents our best current thinking as how big footprint-wise we ever expect Easton to be. There's a recommendation to increase density to go along with that so that we use land more efficiently and we don't need to spread out as much. There's a section and a couple of the chapters that speak to the desire to build neighborhoods as opposed to subdivisions or developments. And what that is referring to is, you know, in the more historic traditional parts of town, you see what I would refer to as traditional neighborhoods. They tend to be a little bit denser. They certainly have more of a mix of uses. So it's not just entirely residential uses. And even when it is, it's a variety of residential types as opposed to house after house after house that essentially looks the same, you know, at most 3 or 4 varieties. So you get more variety of uses. You might see a little bit of commercial use, certainly possibly some cultural uses intertwined within the residences. There is, and this is, I think, pretty universal as we've gone through the last couple of comprehensive plans. There's been a call from both ends of the spectrum, from folks who otherwise have indicated that, hey, we're growing too fast, we need to slow down, and folks who think that we're fine or we even could stand to speak up a bit. There has pretty universally been a call for improving the design of whatever is built in Easton. Not necessarily saying everything has been bad, but we can always strive to do better. And then this is, so all of these the first 4 have been around for a couple of comprehensive plans. The last one is unique to the most recent comprehensive plan, the one we're updating right now. And that was a mention of an attempt to manage the rate of growth. It calls for aiming for 1% annually. It really doesn't get into anything specific in terms of how to achieve that. It just states that that would be preferred as opposed to the 3% annually that we had experienced for the 25 or 30 years leading up to that. The other thing that explains a lot about our growth policies are these 2 maps. One is the one on the right is a future land use map showing recommended land uses within all of this is the existing town of Easton. And the other is the growth areas map. So this shows areas that we envision growing into over time. So I mentioned the urban growth boundary. That would be this line that divides this green, which is described as a green belt, where, for lack of a better term, town or city scale development would stop, and more rural or country scale development would be transitioned into. So that's what the green belt is, and everything colored is not yet within the corporate limits of the town of Easton, but is indicated as appropriate to be so. The differences in color simply refers to when, or a sequence of when we expect it to be, those areas to be logical to come into town. The most immediate being red, and those are all predominantly areas that are already developed in the county under their rules and regulations. But due to their location, we think many people would actually, not familiar with Easton, would expect that they're actually part of Easton. And so for a number of reasons, including possibly the likelihood that at some point they may need to avail themselves of town water and sewer, primarily other town services, that it makes sense to bring them in town. get them under our jurisdiction and our rules and regulations and see them developed and or redeveloped in accordance with our rules and regulations. So in case you haven't found it, information about the comprehensive plan, this is the town's website, homepage on the town's website. There is a button or bubble on the homepage specifically for information about this comprehensive plan update. And if you click on that, you go to this page, and there is the link to the 2 surveys that are currently available to take in both Spanish and English. And I will now just go through the highlights from those surveys. So as Mr. Weber indicated, the 2020 census found that Easton's population was just over 17,000. And we asked in this question, in your opinion, do you think Easton's population is? And we asked people to indicate 1 through 5, with 1 being too small, 5 being too large. You can see the predominant response was right in the middle. Next question concerned how quickly we're growing, growth rate wise, noting that after several decades of more than 3% annual growth, the most recent decade, Easton saw a growth rate of about 0.7% annually, and then asked, in your opinion, is Easton's growth occurring too slowly or too quickly? Again, right in the middle was the predominant answer, a little bit skewed more towards the too quickly than the too slowly, but again, what I would interpret as about right is the predominant answer. Then we asked the question about the footprint of the town, if you will, the amount of land that Easton consumes or occupies, and we asked your feelings on that. 1 being too little, 5 being too much, and once again, about right seems to be the most common response. Then we pointed out that future growth can essentially be accommodated in 1 of 2 ways. So 1, it can focus inward, if you will, on the existing town and look at things like infill development of vacant parcels and redevelopment of improved parcels that are already in town and for whatever reason likely candidates to be redeveloped, rehabbed, reused. The other option is expansion outward rather than inward to the edges of Easton or beyond into areas not yet in town. And we asked folks, in your opinion, what should the percentage split between these 2 development options be? And there's a clear preference stated for more growth to be accommodated by infill and redevelopment, with people suggesting percentages that range anywhere from an even 50-50 split up to 70-30 or even 80-20 in preferring infill and redevelopment. Popular topic, if you will, over the years, what is the role of regional scale retail in Easton? So we asked this question, in your opinion, at this moment in time, do you think the amount of this type of shopping, regional scale shopping in Easton is, there's too little of it or too much? Again, the right down the middle answer was the most common, a little bit split opinion, but again, skewing a little bit towards the too much. But again, the takeaway to me is what we have is about right. Then we asked a more open-ended question. Asked folks to please list 1 thing, and it was indicated it can be a store, a restaurant, an employer, an amenity of some sort that is missing or underrepresented in Easton and that you would like to see added in the next 10 years. And so here are some of the most commonly repeated responses to that question. Number 1, with a bullet, if you will, was Trader Joe's with 41 responses out of the 500 and some responses. And then when you add it with the second one, Whole Foods, it was probably 10% of the responses indicated one or the other, or sometimes both, Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. Other common responses included brewery, steakhouse, a Costco, various ethnic restaurants, sometimes just stated as ethnic restaurants. Sometimes folks express the preference for a particular ethnicity that they were looking for, affordable housing, and publicly accessible waterfront. The second survey, so those were all results from the first survey. The second survey focuses on what we call quality of life issues. It includes questions concerning our current growth strategy, amenities that attract people to Easton, and the potential redevelopment of the current hospital site if and when the new hospital is constructed. Some of the highlights from this survey include, it asked people about, so remember the bullet points I mentioned on our growth strategy, it asked about the appropriateness of each one of those. So first it asked for people how important it is to maintain the strategy of containing sprawl within urban growth boundary. And from 1 being strongly disagree to 5 being strongly agree. So very strong preference. Over half of the folks who responded responded that they very strongly agree with that. Or excuse me, strongly agree with that. Next, same question, but increased density. So this is more split. The most common was the right down the middle, which in this case, I guess would be kind of a neutral opinion. But looking beyond that, slightly more agree with it than disagree, but this one is a little all over the place. A little clearer answer on building neighborhoods as opposed to subdivisions. This said almost 60% strongly agree with that. Improving design, similar, 55.4% strongly agree with that, and another 21% agree. Restrict the rate of growth, again, strongly agree is the most common answer, although this has a little more diversity in responses than some of the other. Next, we asked people to consider each of the following factors often associated with a community's quality of life, indicate the degree to which they think each factor affects current residents in terms of a decision to potentially locate here. So did this factor in your decision to come to Easton, and might it factor in people who aren't in Easton to potentially locate here? So first, the first such factor was parks, and 57.6% felt that was a very important element. Walkability, the walkability of the community or the neighborhood that you're looking to move to. So that over 2/3 of the respondents thought that was important. Variety in housing types. Almost half of the respondents that thought that was very important, and another 1/3 thought it was important. So similar question, but different from variety of housing affordability. Again, over half thought it was very important, and another 20% thought it was important. Shopping options. Here, number 4, the important was the most common, with another, that was 39.1%, and another 29% thought it was very important. Dining options, again, number 4 with 38% was the most commonly response option, with another 34% for number 5 are very important. Transportation options. This was a little more dispersed, but 34.8% was the leading response, and that was for very important. The downtown, 63% of respondents say that's very important, and someone's decision to move to Easton. And historic character, almost the same, 62%. Job opportunities, 57.6% for very important. And for this survey, one of the open-ended questions we asked here was for folks to please name one thing that the town should strive to add or improve in order to enhance that quality of life of our existing residents. And the most frequent responses included parks and a number of things that are closely related to parks. So you'll see parks, waterfront access, trails, also more downtown parking, improvements to Route 50, affordable housing, and improved traffic flows / enforced speed limits on Route 50. Another open-ended question was we asked, what is the most important asset or resource or amenity for the town to protect or enhance as we contemplate the future of our community? And we heard things like the small town character, our downtown Easton, the water or the waterfront, and our sense of community. And then we asked, imagine that you have guests coming to visit you in Easton who have never been to Easton before. What are 3 places you would definitely go out of your way to make sure you show them? The number one with over a third of the responses was downtown. Followed by, our also on the list commonly, was the Avalon, our rail trail, our parks in general, the Art Academy, historic areas, the Hill, the Tidewater Inn, the courthouse, and the Quaker Meeting House. And the flip side of that, what is one place you're going to make every effort to avoid showing them? And those were, fortunately, was not as long a list, but things that made the list more than once were Route 50, Port Street, our shopping centers, the old Safeway building, and a number of people said none or nothing, or there's nowhere that they would avoid showing them. Then we asked the question about the hospital, noting that during the cycle of this plan, the hospital is likely, we think, to move or be on its way to moving to their new facility on the northern edge of town, resulting in a significant redevelopment opportunity right on the fringe of downtown Easton. How should the hospital and its parking lots be reused? And so we heard things like a mixed-use development, apartments. Some people said apartments generally, some people threw in affordable in their description. A number of folks mentioned that it would be nice to maintain some level of medical services in that building or whatever comes in place of that building. A number of folks mentioned parks, an art center, and a number of folks mentioned college or some sort of academic institution or school. I think this is the last question, if not next to last. We asked, which of the following programs or projects would you support, but not just support, you'd support even if it resulted in a tax increase? And you see things like 80% of folks responded that a waterfront walkway or boardwalk would be supported even if it meant a tax increase. Some more that ranked highly was additional passive parks, stream restoration projects, both over 60%, as was an expanded trail system. So a lot of support for parks and park-related things. Yeah, I was right. That was the last question. This is my contact information. If you have any questions or you would like me to alert folks to opportunity for taking that survey or anything, give me a call or send me an email. I'll be glad to spread the word however I can. Threw this in because we thought folks might be interested in recently approved projects. So this is a map just showing the location of some recently approved projects. The yellowish dots indicating residential projects. This is the Gannon Estate PUD off of Matthewstown Road. This is on the wrong side of Elliott. I need to get that map changed, but other than that, it's in the right location for an apartment project that was recently approved by the town council. The others are commercial or industrial projects. Probably most noteworthy, I guess, are the new Royal Farms and new Burger King on Route 50 in Easton at the former Norris Taylor facility. And this, I think we will use for the basis of a discussion that Mr. Weber will lead us through, or some questions that we might ask you. This is a blow-up of that growth areas map. I tried to focus it on Ward 2. It's a little hard given the geometry of Ward 2, but I think I've got it fairly well. This is Route 50. This is the Parkway. This is my best attempt at You Are Here. It's a blob covering the firehouse and then some. And again, this is the urban growth boundary. If it's just this kind of milky white aerial photo, that means it's already in town. If it has a color associated with it, it's not within the corporate limits of the town at this time, but is envisioned to be at some point in our ultimate build out. Yes.
We're not going to let you talk now. We're
Well,
not.
I have a couple of questions about the survey. How many surveys were completed in Spanish? And did you collect any other demographics? Because I listed both of them, but I honestly don't remember.
So the last time I checked, we had no responses to the Spanish survey. We did ask a couple of demographic questions, but they were very basic, like, are you a town of Easton resident? Actually, the last time I went through this, I had those in there, but I felt in the interest of time, I'd take those out of this one.
I'm just wondering if the results might be different if the respondents represent the demographics of the town. And, how do you get that done? I know
Right.
it's difficult. How do you get that done?
Yes, so with the limited information that we have on demographics, that's the kind of thing we're looking at is, I think over 500 is not bad at this point in the comp plan update and for comprehensive plans generally. But we certainly want more, and we certainly want broader representation. And we know that we're not getting it from the Spanish speaking community. We need to try to find out why, and the best of our ability. Want to work with the Chesapeake Center, Multicultural Center, to have them maybe get the word out. Probably there's been a suggestion as recently as today, as maybe some folks would actually respond better to the old-fashioned printed survey, and so we make a few of those available, and maybe that applies to the Spanish-speaking community. I don't know, but we're certainly willing to try things like that.
I have one other question about the recently approved project. Do you feel that, I'm thinking of the PUD on Matthewstown Road, do you feel that is consistent with the existing comp plan in terms of building neighborhoods, not development?
So as one of the slides indicated, there's a lot in a comprehensive plan, and pretty much any project the Planning Commission and Town Council is asked to review is not going to be 100% consistent with every item in the comprehensive plan. And I think on the balance, what I take from the Planning Commission and Council's decision was that it hit many of the housing goals and objectives, and that at this particular moment in time, those maybe are a little more pressing than some of the aspects that maybe it wasn't as consistent with. Maybe I'm reading into it, but that's what I took from the discussion.
So I want to ask your reaction to some of the questions. So I'd like to focus first on the growth rate and the population. So the majority of people thought growth rate was just about right. As you like, population is just right at the growth rate.
It might be worth mentioning what the folks at the first community meeting indicated, and that was similar to your response, that it's okay. And in some senses, and really it's the first time I've heard this in 30 years of doing this, was a recognition that given that so much of our growth is, let's say, the older generations that are moving here to retire, that it really becomes important to continue growth, because we're not going to be around as long as if we focused on the younger generations. That might, depending on your perspective of that response, that might suggest a couple of different things. Maybe that suggests we need to be more balanced in our growth and look at ways to attract younger families and retain, graduating students and things like that. Or maybe it suggests, continuing what we've been doing, even if whether it's a conscious decision or not, of being kind of a retirement hub.
I could also argue that the community Baptist down the road brought up might be more conducive to younger families than it would be the older retired people. So that could be a draw for young families.
I don't know how to answer that question. I'm currently doing a study of older adult communities to see how people move around in them, and between those studies and adjacent areas. So have to get in the car and go get a butter. That may help.
So one of the questions talked about where that growth should be. Said that we want to continue to grow at 1% a year. And the majority of the respondents to this survey said they favored infill development, which means vacant land within the center of town, and or redevelopment of some of the older areas of town where there might be an area that's disused versus using vacant land. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that we should be using open land, not green. Because I know some developments are coming up where we have green wooded areas and we're going to put development in. And I am opposed to chopping down the trees where we have open vacant lots within town boundaries, where other developments could be, where I believe we should try to secure some more green area or than developing one.
But if you were now to contrast open vacant land with infill development and redevelopment, where would you fall on that?
Infill, I like infill, as long as we're using this stuff. Infill, and there's plenty of property. It seems like they build something, it closes, and we go and build somewhere else without using the property that's already designed for utilities that are there. So we don't use it, and then we realize an area where we have utilities in. So I think we need to backfill or infill what we already have before we start using open land.
Okay. Any other thoughts about development? Infill development versus using vacant land?
How about, does anybody have any specific examples or ideas for infill or even redevelopment projects? Is there a shopping center that is ripe for redevelopment, or an in-town vacant parcel that is begging to be an infill
I mean,
development?
we all know the Safeway is not an issue. I mean, this is my opinion, is that we use it as a town, utilize that area. I know it's not supposed to be grocery store. If parking is a big thing in town, why not parking garage? Or not something to utilize that more better? Because everybody talks about Safeway all the time. What are we doing with that?
Yes, we've heard it, as you saw on a number of the surveys.
So my pet project is the Target, Harris Teeter area. I feel that ought to be mixed use. I keep looking at the Capital One Bank building, those could be 3 great townhouses. And all of those unoccupied, smaller office buildings in front of, it's not the cost, whatever.
DJs, yeah.
Yeah, that, why does the town
give you something, hopefully you'll appreciate that even though it's to a relatively small degree, that is part of the plan, that is a mixed-use development. The very last phase of it is an apartment project. The developer has indicated it'll be the last phase simply because he doesn't do residential development. So he intends to do the commercial aspects, which frankly there aren't that many left. And then look for someone to partner with to do the apartments.
Great. That's good to hear. Thank you. So I'm not so crazy.
Yep.
My husband keeps telling me I'm crazy.
Oh, that's actually the next thing to point. So a big issue is shopping. You know, I've heard a number of people say, oh my goodness, I want Bloomingdale's or some other high food store. We don't have that. And other people say, it's on that. We have more than enough they call regional shopping. So what's your thought? Do we have enough shopping? Do we have enough variety?
Years ago, when they were going to build Walmart, was supposed to destroy our town. Everybody said, we're going to get Walmart, everybody's going to go there, everything else is going to flood. Well, obviously, that didn't happen. We now still support Target. We have Kohl's, Michael's, all these other stores come here. It gives you a lot of variety. I think with the current thought process, use less fuel, go green and whatnot, we should have the ability to get the things we need within our community. And the two shopping sides we have, giant Walmart side versus Target, certainly can support most of them. But we also have spots on 50 that are just flood up. Old steak bar, the old Southern Steaks. I was in Southern Florida at Exxon Station at Goldsboro 50. Those spots should be, instead of giving somebody that helps that beautify Route 50, give us the opportunity to get food from these here. I think having a shopping here, one, it gives jobs, gives people a reason to come to our town, but also gives the residents a reason, things we need without having to travel. Used to be, if we could go shopping on Saturday, it's closed for school, we either went to Salisbury or Annapolis. Now, I just go, do it here.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think there's room for additional, I don't know, you got to get the right thing. Some stores want populations, they want to know they have a certain number of people through the door. My wife got a great store one day this week in the Alps. She is from the East, we have her like these. She's going to fill up this store. You just got to get the time, you got to get the placement, something like that may bring more customers that go about to the next store. You got to get the right place. I hate seeing an owner that middle shopping center. I don't like seeing doctors on the middle shop.
So selection is more than it is, we need more.
You need the right, the right things where the right place. Put the healthcare in the right places. They don't need to be in the shops. That's happening. They want the right.
I think we missed out with Walmart. I know Walmart and they wanted to make a bigger store and they ended up on the deck. The store here, that everybody knows, is not what Walmart wants. It's more of a discount store. We end up not having the variety here at Walmart where you go to that, which is a lot cleaner, a lot nicer. Where you venture down the street. Walmart here, to whatever Walmart's plan is they want to build a bigger store. And where does that fit into our mix? No, Walmart's kind of where it is.
So that's a good observation. So we had the question about regional scale retail, and major retail has long been a hot button issue in Easton. And the prevailing opinion has, or maybe it's just the loudest opinion, has seemed to be, we've got enough big box or major retail stores. The counter argument that I've heard, frankly, I've never heard it till recently, but I've heard it a couple of times now, is, by somewhat artificially limiting the size of these stores, you don't get as nice a store as they could be. We get like a junior Marshalls instead of the regular Marshalls.
Kohl's is that. It's junior Kohl's.
Right.
So we limit ourselves.
BJ's is one.
Yes. And it only hurts us if we get something that's half what we're getting. we're only getting half of it. How do we continue to grow? We want retail, but we're only getting half the retail.
Let me switch gears a little bit. So there's been much said recently about building neighborhoods as opposed to subdivisions. What do that mean to you? What are your thoughts about that?
What's your definition of neighborhood first, Dave? What is your definition of neighborhood?
A collection of homes.
Okay.
Residential homes.
Residential. Now, I'm only going to say this, and I know it's the proper thing here. I live in the Huntersville development. And I know there's a plan coming up within the next, however, to build between Town Run and Huntersville development. Where, when I built here 10 years ago, there was a 25 home supposed to be put in. Now there's a developer that is going around saying he's going to build multi-townhomes and expand it to 125 units and 150 units. And if he gets his way, and he said this on Talbot's Spy, if he gets his way, he's going to build a big amount of this. You know, as a resident, I don't think our development, I'm for the 25 homes, but I'm not for 150 homes in that development. I know the farmer and and the states is going, it's fine. But that development in the back, there is a lot of people that are going to be vocal about that development. And I don't know if you're aware of that, but between Town Run and Huntersville development, you're going to build that big development, and you're going to make all them cars come through a development that was only to have 25 homes. I'm very passionate, very upset that we're going to continue down this road. So that's
We live in Town Run. My home's on the corner of Alden and Fisher Rick. The other side of that apartment complex that Dale was talking about, would have to come from that intersection. Nobody knows how to use that stop sign down. Cannot imagine another 200-300 cars coming for air stop that apartment complex. You can't even be cutting down trees, building. That's not what needs to happen. I'm just a brick. I oppose that apartment complex back there. Put 25 homes in there. Cool. That's what we expected. We moved into residential neighborhood subdivision. Town Run, I'm sure you would recognize that as a suburb. To us, it's a neighborhood. We have their blocks, knows each other, which is not like that. We have, we have our trees, and they're tight. So you got to think about, the fire trucks in these neighborhoods, things like that. I've been achieving fire department races with firefighters, guns, on that. We struggle now in places, even on my street, Common Circle, to pop in. It's very difficult for us to get better. I cannot imagine putting 3 or 4 story apartments down in that hole and trying to get the fire truck in there in a timely fashion. I've already found Grant Court is already starting to be an automatic alarm. Nuisance, start, do, so you gotta think about it.
Grant Court down behind, down by Walmart. I mean,
Think about it, emergency services.
look how long it took to get us a light at Town Run development and a light to the Black Dog Alley. I know it's a state, but you're going to put 125 units. If that goes through times 2 cars, right? So that's 250 cars coming out of Huntersville. And then you're going to have the other development, which has been approved, which is fine, at the down in the States. You're going to have that road where you took forever to put a light at Town Run and Black Dog Alley. How many people were killed, and you're going to put how much traffic on there? It's the wrong idea. And I'm just my opinion.
And I'll add to that also the apartment complex that's going at Kelly. That's a lot of congestion right there when you're adding on all of the Hammond, all of Huntersville, all of Town Road, whoever's coming out the backside of the military station in Breckenridge. It's a lot of traffic.
I'm going to stop there and I'm going to play devil's advocate. So the community is saying 1% growth is okay. And we have 7%. Where do you want that growth to be?
The other plan, I don't see the other plan up there for the Oxford Road development,
It's not a budget.
but it's gone.
Well,
Yeah.
Let's just stick with that for a minute. So
So
we're saying that a town is okay with 1% growth. But now you folks are concerned about where that growth is going to be. well within what we said was okay, but it's happening. So now we deal with congestion, traffic.
You'd be further on. Where you put that density?
Yes.
Matthew
You say
Town
it's
Road,
okay, but that's.
the density in certain areas. I mean, you can't build and fill Matthew Town Road. So you improve that road.
And that, Mr. Weber, that sounds very similar to me to a comment we heard at the Easton Club East meeting where folks actually said, we're okay with the growth. It's the traffic that comes from the growth, for example. That needs to be looked at more closely and more appropriately, maybe more at the front end. That sounds similar to your folks' comments.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm just curious for your guys saying that the organic farms, the state development is okay, but the proposed possibility of the project wouldn't be. What makes the Gannon estate proposal that has 260 some homes in there and will bring like 1.8 cars per household?
It's more,
You just can't get them.
I'm on the plane. Asking this to understand the format.
You go to Fisher Ridge Road or Collins Road, watch that intersection.
And it's
Number of people that run that stop sign.
just a stop. So like.
No, I don't like it. It's a side of the road. I moved into a residential neighborhood for a nice, quiet residential neighborhood, not to be the fill for crosstown connector or anything else like that.
But it is a neighborhood in a town, so we're always connected to other people living.
Absolutely.
And,
You've
well,
got June
I
Way
would
over
add-
on Dover Road, we're more or less able to be connected. Apartment complex down there, you have to make. You would take 4 left turns, a right turn down. All on purpose. One curve,
Kind of,
maybe worse. Yeah, it's kind of like that. You need to drive from Town Road to run, see how you get down to where the entrance to the jail is. It is a wooded area. Absolutely no reason. We've already killed how many trees in outside town for here. We need to keep the trees.
that's why I have to remember that we are in a town, so yes, we need trees and we are, but this is where the town is trying to grow. We have planning commission are always trying to balance.
That's not the right place for parking lot. June Way, Matthews Town Road, Hunter's Mill. We didn't build it those residential neighborhoods to have a parking complex. That easy to say. Possibly be a gated community. It drives through everything to limited access to this.
I understand what you're saying, so I'll give you an example. The entrance for Hunter's Mill was designed for 25 additional residential units. It was designed. Entrance, the way you come in, and you make a left or right. Have you ever driven on Captain Avenue Street? Listen, I'm asking this because you guys make decisions, I'm asking, have you driven on that road? Okay. You can barely get a fire truck down that road with no cars, let alone building in a 125 unit complex apartments. Traffic going through there, 250 cars a day at that development. It is not designed for 125 unit development. It is designed for which I'll find 25 homes, which was designed originally, is fine. The entrance and McCall Street to make the left or right, which you're going to go around to come to back to the development, was not designed for additional 125 units. You got 2 cars per unit. You're talking 250 cars. I'm just speculating, but you're going to say that the road was not designed for that amount of traffic. And that's all. That's what I'm concerned about.
I want to switch up the traffic conversation a little bit. So we heard the first meeting, there was concern about Route 50 going north and south. We've also heard people express concern about crosstown traffic going east-west. So what are your thoughts about Route 50 congestion? What are your thoughts about some kind of bypass that goes east-west?
The problem with Route 50, I would say, biggest problem with Route 50 is not the residents it affects us. We have to get over it, get in. But the majority of that traffic that really affects us is commerce, tourists, and whatnot. They're going from the west towards the ocean, towards Salisbury, towards Ocean City. And, you know, you look at the amount of truck traffic, campers, boats heading up and down. We get a little window to get across that road. It really splits their family in the middle. Yeah, that's the reason we have 2 fire stations. Because when I moved over there, I could get to the job and get here. Sometimes not able to. We have 2 fire stations now. That's alleviated some of that problem. We've been able to recruit more members because of that. But that is, it's a border wall. It's hard to cross.
Any other thoughts about traffic?
I think we understand the 50, you know, there's a lot of tourists that come through. We want tourists, when people are coming through, we understand that. But where does it stop? Because Route 50, if you go out there today, I was taking my kids to school, and it was so congested. And the light benefits tourists, does not benefit the resident at one bit. And I don't care who stands up and tells me what. If I got to sit at that light, and I timed it for 8.5 minutes to go, and I got to take my kids to school, it's benefiting tourists, not benefiting residents. I don't care if you are coming from wherever you are, you know, Western Shore, to go to Ocean City, you're inconvenienced because you got to stop at traffic light. But when you're a town resident, you're inconvenienced every day because when we're catering to the town, I mean, to the visiting people. I know the state road is a little run by the state. I understand how all that works, but you know, the speed on there does need to be taken into account. I know the police do the job that they need to do, but you know, it's 35. How many times have everyone in this room that goes out there, you see people going 35? The tractor trailers running them roads, running with lights all the time. It is very dangerous. I belong to the fire department, and I know the statistics. You can't tell me what I know the statistics. Same with him. We know what they are, and it's not safe. That's just
I want to ask one other question to kind of get your thoughts on moving in a different direction. So a portion of your ward is on the eastern side, and a portion of your ward is on the western side. You probably older developments with a variety of homes, versus some neighborhoods on the east, similar type of homes. So there's been much discussion, and it's been a goal of people throughout the years to improve the architecture of the buildings that have this town. And I think when people say that, they have a tendency to think that they want to emulate some of the architecture downtown area or historic. So with that thought in mind, do you think architectural standards should be the same, irrespective of where the developers go, the west side of the or we really want to make sure that the look and the feel of our community is more typical of our historic nature. So those architectural standards should be the same.
in the downtown area. I think it looks great. You know, everything is kind of, you know, uniformed, everything looks nice, but yet we hold the downtown status as the same as the Route 50 status, where everything's got to be brick, everything's got to be this. And how many times did we go through with Olive Garden before Olive Garden was pulled out and had to do this? It needs to be nice, but flexible. But you know what? I like what we have with the look of it. You know, we're in downtown. I like the downtown. It looks really nice.
And some of the same architectural standards should be brought to bear on developers who want to build new developments.
Maybe incorporate, don't hinder growth. We've hindered growth enough with those restrictions.
How does that relate to the market, what people want to buy? And then the cost of construct, so you can have something that was similar architecturally that's built to a higher spec or lower spec, but it looks like, you know, different houses. I mean, I think we have friends at William
And then ironically, their corporate architecture was what was approved.
Yeah, it is, but I know that's wrong. You know, don't keep things away because it doesn't. There's a community, I can't remember which town, it's right down US 13, next to Bridgestone. You get to that community. It's kind of great. You've got nice landscape and everything. Every building in their stretch of town has the same green roof on their own stretch of 15. Has the same metal roof, the same color painted trim, the same color board. Awesome. Big picture. It's like, what's what? So, you know, Royal Farm certainly is a good bit of running a local building. Maybe used for how to look building out. But don't try to hold.
But to that point, the current Royal Farms, we didn't make them build a colonial Royal Farms. We asked,
But I'm just saying, as you go forward.
We asked them
like you
to-
said, sticking
yes, we asked them to deviate from their corporate off-the-shelf architecture, which they did a decent job of, I think. And what helped there a lot was the preservation of the really large mature trees, I think adds a lot to that site.
And the new Royal Farms that's going in westbound lane is carrying from their corporate architecture as well.
I don't know who approved the brand court design, there's mountain apartments, but that's the pigs. It's not easy to the eye.
Do you have any visual preferences that might help people kind of envision?
So that's a good question. One of the comprehensive plan updates I've been involved with, we actually brought in a gentleman to do a visual preference survey for all of Talbot County, including a rather large portion of it on Easton. And that continues to be referenced in the current comprehensive plan. We could certainly, even if we don't go that far, at the townwide meeting that we're anticipating, where we really haven't nailed down when it is and exactly what it'll be like, but the general intent is that we'll have a number of interactive exercises, similar to some of the things you guys did when you walked in, but more of them covering a variety of topics, hopefully in an easy to do and a fun format. And I think a visual preference survey or a takeoff of that could certainly be part of that kind of meeting.
One last question, so we can get you out of here in a reasonable hour. A lot has been said about affordable workforce housing. Kept this already in the current plan, was a big concern years ago. I think it's still a long-term key folks we've spoken to, still a big concern. What are your thoughts about that? Should Easton have a major effort towards sponsoring affordable workforce housing?
What's the sponsoring mean?
The definition for affordable housing to you,
Well, that's part of the struggle is,
the definition.
yeah, the definition, because that means different things to different people. I think we can honestly say that currently there is a need for housing pretty much across the entire spectrum of housing. And that's not unique to Easton. That's, pretty much a national trend right now. But there certainly is a concern on the affordable slice of that, however you define it. We have an affordable housing board. It's certainly a major topic with our town council at the moment. They've had a couple of workshops, one involving the council, the planning commission, and the town's affordable housing board to kick around those issues and just what do we need to do to tackle it. One of the very first things they did agree to was let's get a common definition of what that means. What percentage of median income or per capita income or whatever it is are we looking to target in our affordable housing efforts?
I mean,
I think there's a number to you from about your question. So
Yeah.
we discussed this a lot at past planning commission meeting, November. And Tracy Ward brought some numbers to us. And these are more like federal designations. We can set our own if we would like.
we talk about affordable housing. We talk about affordable housing, but we talk about income. But maybe affordable housing, are we talking about affordable housing for families, or are we talking about affordable housing for the elderly? Because you may have an elderly affordable housing population like Londonderry and the Easton Club, where you have an older population for these, where older people want to have affordable housing. They don't want to be associated with family area, but you want to have a mixture of both. So income, I think you look at income, you go, okay, we're going to build houses, people get $30,000, but you may not, you need an area where older population to live and the families to live. It's hard to.
It's very, obviously it's harder. We wouldn't have the problem to the degree we have.
Any other issues, concerns, is there something that we haven't mentioned that's not on your list?
I think we always talk about big stuff when we talk about the town, and I think where the town of Easton is missing out and is public transportation. The town's always looking for income, but we have outside agencies that their home base may be Dorchester, and they provide transportation for Queen Anne to inside Dalton County. And I think in the town of Easton, a public transportation aspect may be looked at for elderly getting around town. There's a lot of people that live on, we'll say the 50s is split. A lot of people live on the west side of town, may not venture to the east side because they're elderly, may not want to drive, or children or younger adults that live on one side of town may not venture to the other side. Maybe if we had public transit plus or stronger than that, maybe we could diversify the town with better public transit.
So we have a little bit of that, but you're right. Perhaps it could be expanded, and we'll certainly, in the course of developing the plan, we'll reach out to Delmarva Community Transit and see, do they have plans for upgrades? How can we work together? Things like that. But it's a valid and well-made point.
I think tonight we used the word traffic and transportation, and I'm not sure if they're used interchangeably, or if using the word traffic was intentional and transportation was intentional. And I guess my question to you is, do you see them as interchangeable or two different things? Because walking to school is not a traffic issue, it's a transportation issue. And it's about the pedestrian network as part of the transportation system. So I'm hoping that this comp plan update will address transportation, not traffic. So network design, maybe at one entrance going into the redevelopment, you have a traditional grid and different ways to get out to disperse that traffic.
So one of the chapters of the comprehensive plan will be on transportation, not on traffic. If traffic will be included within it, but transportation, as you said, is broader than just traffic and multimodal.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time, your thoughts.
Yes.
Again, would you please take the surveys that you haven't already? Let your neighbor, your friends do likewise. So we have more than 600 people, hopefully 5,000 or 6,000. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot. It was, small in number, but good discussion and a lot of good comments for us to keep in mind. Appreciate it.